I think it might be time to rethink the FIRE movement, or at least how we view the movement around financial independence, retire early. Let me explain. No one ever went to McDonald's for a healthy meal. You went for a Big Mac and fries, supersize if you're adventurous. This is what made McDonald's so successful. But after the documentary Super Size Me came out and shed the light on how bad on your health a McDonald's-based diet is, the restaurant did not want to be known as the fast food chain that made America fat. So what did they do? They started to rebrand themselves to be a little bit more health conscious, and they decided to add some more salads to the menu. Whenever a company's mission or messaging doesn't come across clearly to the general masses, they will oftentimes go through a rebranding so that they can better communicate what the company is about, or at least reshift the public's perception of them, as in the case of Facebook. So that got me thinking, could it be time for the FIRE movement to go through its own rebranding? When you go on YouTube and you search for videos on the FIRE movement, oftentimes you're met with a lot of videos of people who either dislike the movement or they were part of the movement, but they decided to quit. And what I found after watching some of these videos and reading through some of the blog posts of people who may have pursued FIRE in the past is that a lot of times they have an issue with certain aspects of the FIRE movement. Some people don't like the fact that a lot of people aim to achieve FIRE, say by the age of 35, or a very non-traditionally young retirement age. And a lot of people don't like that because it's almost like these people aim to achieve something that is very unrealistic, or if they end up achieving it, what are they gonna do for the rest of their life? Are they gonna just go out and travel for like 40, 50 years and not contribute to society? Some people don't like the idea of people who are in their 20s living so frugally for a period of 10, 15, or even 20 years. They feel like a lot of these people are just living so frugal and being so antisocial that it's almost like, what's the point of pursuing FIRE only to achieve it at such a young age when you're missing out on life? So after watching all of these different videos on people who maybe don't like the FIRE movement or quit the movement for one reason or another, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. What I've realized is maybe the problem isn't with the movement itself, but maybe with the perception of the movement, or maybe the messaging around the movement. Now, in case you don't know, FIRE is an acronym that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And I haven't seen a single person come out against at least the first half of that acronym, the financial independence part. But I think I see people taking a little bit more issue with the retire early part. So I feel like because of the RE part, the retire early part, that can sort of get in the way or sort of be a hindrance to people understanding really what the goal or the purpose of FIRE is. Now, disclaimer, this is just my thoughts. I don't claim to be a FIRE authority or anything like that. I'm just a guy who is just trying to achieve financial independence. But I thought I'd offer my opinions and thoughts on this because I think it might offer a little bit of insight on where maybe the messaging is being a hindrance to what the overall goal of the FIRE movement is. Now, as with any movement where there is a big group of people who subscribe to the ideals of the movement, you're always going to have a spectrum of people within that movement. When it comes to the FIRE movement, on one end of the spectrum, you might have people who are a little bit more conservative with their approach to FIRE, and instead of maybe retiring at the age of 65, they want to retire at 55. So they simply just want to up their savings rate a little bit, and they still want to work, but they just want to shave a couple years off of their retirement time horizon. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you might have someone who is, say, maybe in their 20s and they want to retire by the age of 35. And in order to do that on their low income, they live as frugally as possible and they don't take any trips. They don't spend any money on themselves. They live in a small box and they eat out of cans just to be able to save as much money and to invest as much money as possible to be able to retire so that they can conservatively live off of a very small amount for the rest of their life at the age of 35. And then you have everyone else who falls somewhere in between. So what that tells me is the FIRE movement isn't a one size fits all, but really there's a spectrum of how to achieve FIRE and why people achieve FIRE and different time horizons of achieving FIRE. Really, the movement is sort of as I see it, a framework in terms of how to manage your money and to focus your attention so that you can reach a goal at a certain time. I do think what's great about the FIRE movement, whether you love it or hate it, is that it brings an awareness that the normal person, the average person, if they do the right steps and they are proactive in their approach to managing their money and investing their money, they can actually achieve FIRE and retire early. Also, if you're enjoying this video so far, do me a favor, hit that like button. It lets me know that you're enjoying the content and also lets this video spread to more people. Now, before anyone accuses me of being a FIRE fanboy at all costs, I do think that there are potential problems associated with the FIRE movement. I think one of the potential problems of the FIRE movement could be the element of poor planning. Now, let's take this overly simplified and generalized example and say that someone is 25 and they want to retire by the age of 35, which in and of itself is already a very ambitious goal, really depending on the situation and income level. They want to accumulate X amount of dollars to be able to retire at the age of 35 and live off their retirement for the rest of their life. A potential problem can come into play of poor planning in terms of how do you actually plan for a 50 or 60 year window of retirement, not really knowing exactly how your needs will change in the future, or not even knowing if your wants will even change. Maybe you want to upgrade your lifestyle in the future. You want to have the option of doing that. You might pick a FIRE number that may be inadequate to sustain you through a period of 50 or 60 years. There really hasn't been any studies to show how retirement portfolios will generally do beyond a period of 30 years. Maybe let's say you planned your FIRE number and you were very diligent and you hit your goal of, I don't know, $1 million to retire for the rest of your life at the age of 35. Well, did you consider things like health insurance or how you're going to survive maybe a down market of a period of 1 to 2 years? All of this can really impact your FIRE number or the amount that you've accumulated to retire if you didn't do proper planning to make sure that you hedge against those situations. Another potential problem is maybe having a very extreme, overly frugal lifestyle. Now, to each his own when it comes to this, because who am I to say that one is living way too frugal, right? It really just depends on what they want and also depends on if they're doing it in a healthy way. A lot of people might go to extremes to do everything that they can, and they might miss potential opportunities of maybe going on that ski trip with your friends and maybe going out to dinner celebrating one of your friends' birthdays, and you're just like, I'm not gonna spend any extra money and I'm going to achieve FIRE at the age that I set out for myself no matter what. If that's what you really wanna do, who am I to say you can't do that? But let's just say you reach the age of 35 or 40 and you finally retire, and then you look back and realize, you know what? I could have made more memories with my family or my friends. Another problem could be unrealistic expectations on what retirement can be. Now, for some people, they might envision early retirement to be just doing whatever they want every single day without having to go to a job, without having to work, and all they're gonna do is just sit around, maybe read a book, or they're just gonna travel the world. I've heard a lot of people maybe on podcasts or watch videos of people who actually achieve early retirement by not really having a structure in their life or not really having work to go to. A lot of people got bored. I mean, you can only travel for so much and sit on the beach for so many days before you get bored and you want to do something else. Now, there are outliers, of course, but I think generally for most people, you need to have some sort of purpose and you need to have something to work towards or to work for. Now, on the flip side, the FIRE movement, or this idea of retiring early after you achieve financial independence, it does have its upsides, and I think there are a lot of positives with it. I think one of the biggest positives, and I alluded to it earlier, is the fact that it does bring awareness, especially to a younger demographic who otherwise wouldn't be so concerned with personal finance. It brings more of an awareness that, hey, you can actually manage your money to accomplish a financial goal. You can actually do it quite sooner than what is traditionally considered normal, and you can take control of your financial future. I think one of the great things about FIRE is it gets a lot of people excited about saving and investing. Typically, when you talk about saving your money, it's not really a sexy topic, but when you put it in the context of trying to achieve financial independence and retiring early, it puts it in a whole different light. And so I think this gets a lot of people excited about the idea of maybe increasing their savings rate. It gets them excited about the fact that they can actually understand a simple concept of investing that's effective and it has worked for many decades. They don't have to be an expert in the stock market or an expert in investing to be able to successfully invest. I think having a movement like this can get people excited to actually take action to put themselves in a much better financial position. Another great thing about the FIRE movement is it brings a focus on changing bad financial habits. Habits of spending more than what you bring in. It's a great way for you to take a high-level look at how your relationship with money is and how you're spending money. And it helps you to actually recalibrate and think to yourself, what am I doing now? What decisions am I making now with my money is negatively impacting my future potential with money? And how can I make good decisions with my money that'll put me in a much better financial position in the future? Another super positive thing about the FIRE movement, and probably one of my favorite aspects of it, is the fact that pursuers of FIRE really are pursuing the first half of that acronym, financial independence. And people who are aiming to achieve early retirement, they have to achieve financial independence first. And what financial independence actually does is it puts you in control of your own money and your own destiny. You're able to take back time that otherwise you would have to give to someone else by maybe working your job that you don't even like, or even working a job that you do like. The FIRE movement isn't always about people wanting to leave their job because they hate their job. It could be about them wanting to explore other options or to actually start their own business that they've always wanted to start, but they had the limitations of not having financial independence before they actually start that business. I think one of the most beautiful things about financial independence is you get to take your time back. Those 40 or 50 hours that you were giving to your employer now belongs to you. And for a lot of people, they don't want to just sit around and do nothing with those 40 and 50 hours. People like myself who's on the path to financial independence, we don't want to just sit around and do nothing. We actually want to focus our energy on our own passion projects, or maybe focus our energy on working on other things that we actually want to work on. And we'll have the time to do that without the fear of not getting paid enough to do it. So personally, I don't think the FIRE movement in and of itself is the problem. Perhaps it's the messaging or how it comes across to most people that hear it. Maybe that can be a potential issue. And so maybe it's time to rebrand the FIRE movement from financial independence, retire early, to financial independence with the option to retire early. Maybe that'll be a little bit of a better way to look at it. So should we change the acronym to FIWTOTRE? I don't know, maybe that doesn't do so well on the branding standpoint and the marketing standpoint, but maybe we just need to shift how we view financial independence, retire early, and just kind of keep in our mind that for most people, they don't want to just retire early and do nothing. They want to achieve financial independence and have options with their life. I think that is the overall message behind the FIRE movement. At the end of the day, the FIRE movement isn't for everyone, and that's okay. But if you choose to pursue it, and let's just say you miss your goal by a little bit, maybe by a couple years, at least you'd be much better off financially having tried to achieve your goal versus not having tried at all. As Leo Burnett put it, if you reach for the stars, you might not quite get one, but you won't come up with a handful of mud either. Everyone's goal should be to achieve financial independence, whether we do it at 65 or 35. I think as long as we pursue it, we're much better off having done it than not doing it at all. If you want a deeper dive into the FIRE movement in terms of how it started and also how to achieve FIRE, then make sure you watch this video right here after this one, because it's gonna be an awesome overview. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.